name is Joanna Daniel. I am founder of Wounds to Scars, and we serve adult survivors of childhood trauma and women who experience abuse. And we do that through conferences, retreats, and online courses. I am a counselor and I live in the UK. Now, today I'm talking about how to fix avoidant patterns in your parenting, how to fix avoidant attachment patterns in your parenting. There are many things that cause avoidant attachment patterns, and I'm just going to talk about some of why that happens, how that happens, and some of the things that you can do to fix it. I know that there are many women in our community who are healing from abusive relationships. And one of the things that women say to me often when they're healing is, and I know this to be true, that sometimes, not in all cases, sometimes the preoccupation or the thoughts, there's not much left over for the children when the sole purpose is just to survive. And when you're in survival mode, sometimes secure attachment suffers. And I want you to know that it's okay. Attachment injuries can heal. And if you notice that you don't have secure attachment with your children, and I always say to women, it doesn't matter what ages they are, that can change. And there are things that we can do to heal attachment injuries so that we can begin to have secure patterns with our children, whatever the ages. And perhaps that's one of my favorite things to write about, to talk about, to teach, to my favorite groups to run. So that's saying I'm going to talk about how you can fix avoidant patterns. Now, there are many things that might cause avoidant pattern in your parenting that you may notice, many things. One of the things that cause avoidant, that can influence that is when the children were born, somebody was left in hospital, whether it's you or the child. A traumatic birth for any reason can cause avoidant patterns as well, can cause disrupted attachment, not necessarily just avoidant pattern, but disrupted attachment can happen through medical reasons. And one of the things also that we don't really talk about is women who experience sexual trauma. Sometimes we're re-traumatized giving birth, and that also can impact attachment. Because if you're re-traumatized giving birth and you're healing, so that the healing is twofold, you are dealing with post-traumatic memories and you're healing from giving birth, and here's this little person that you need to connect with. There's a whole lot going on for a woman in that case. And if the relationship is abusive, then it's threefold. Then you're healing from post-traumatic memories, you're dealing with post-traumatic memories, you have a little person to love and to care for, you're caring for your own physical wounds and your emotional wounds, and there's this abuse that is going on at the same time. So multiple things can be going on for a woman at the same time that can impact how we attach. Now, and that's why I encourage you to not blame yourself, to not allow this to make you sink in despair. When we recognize it, that's the first place, because then we can do something about it. So we know a little something about attachment injuries when the twins were born and one was left in hospital. And I talk about that a lot. And I share that extensively in my Parenting After Trauma program. And it was a relief for me to know that there's research that is in this. Like, there's research, twins born premature, one left in hospital. There's a whole group of people. But sometimes you can feel like you're on your own and you're the only one that's dealing with this thing, but you're not on your own. And I want you to know that you're not on your own. There are many people that have experienced what you've experienced. And though your situation is unique to you, there are tools that can be used to help. But when we notice that the avoidant pattern is in us, like we're avoidant, how do we then, what can we do to fix avoidant pattern in our parenting when that is our attachment pattern, right? So the avoidant develops when the needs of touch, compassion, and connection were not met. So if you notice that about yourself as well, that those needs were not met for you, and you notice that as your pattern, then there are things as well that I'm going to talk about later that can be done, that can be helpful. So the avoidant pattern, the avoidant person prefers to be on their own, sometimes pushes people away, fearful of others' desire to connect, and fearful of intimacy because there's a difficulty letting others in. So that's how the avoidant develops. So if you can imagine that you're avoidant or this is happening, the intimacy, you don't have the capacity for it because of some of the things that I listed earlier that might be going on, and therefore you don't have the capacity to connect. You're just not available. So when the child cries for help, those signs, while as a mom you don't want to ignore it, sometimes you have to, because of everything else that is going on, and you might not be okay. You might not be okay, and you might need support in order to be able to respond to the cries of the child. And it's important to know that what was going on at that time, those times when those formative years, 0 to 7 or beyond, when attachment's developing, what was going on for me, that I see this disconnection now with my child. And if you're in a season where your children are younger, that's a really good season that you can start to begin to heal those ruptures and build secure connection. If you're in the teen years, and sometimes when I speak to mothers and they're in the teen years, they feel like it's impossible to fix. There's nothing that can be done, but there's always something that can be done. Whatever the ages or stages of your children, they're going to still need you. What I will say is, if you don't have the capacity to respond to those needs, it's really important that you get help for you so that you can have the capacity to respond to those needs. So the cries of the child are ignored. Cries for comfort and connection is ignored. It can't be met. And often, sometimes there's an encouragement of the child, like toughen up. And sometimes we feel like we're encouraging them, like, don't cry. Why are you crying? Toughen up. You need to be tougher. Those kind of things. Be strong. Be brave. Just trust in God. You just need to trust in God when you notice that there's a disconnection and the child might be struggling, and what we're telling them to do, they can't, because they don't have any foundation and basis for it. And so if you notice that there's one child that's pulling away too far, or they're spending too much time on their own, or there's not enough togetherness, then those things can be fixed. And it's really important that they get done quickly. Trust might take some time to build, so they might not trust that you're going to do the things that you said you're going to do. Like, is this going to be continuous? Are they going to continue to do this? Will they want to spend time with me all the time? So it's important to be consistent, because consistency builds trust, and you want them to be able to trust you. So what are some of the things that avoidants are good at? Avoidants are good at tasking children, like, go and do this, do that, do that, do that. Anything that means that you're not with me, then that's what avoidants are good at. So if you notice that you're good at sending them away to go do things, go color, go draw, go play with your friend, go play with your sister, play with your brother, go to your room, clean your room, do your laundry, whatever the tasking is. And if you notice that you're doing that versus pulling them in, then that might be what's happening. And so it's going to take a lot of intentionality to begin to break that and to change that. So how can you how can we fix the avoidant pattern? First, we need to recognize the pattern. Is that your pattern? If you have an avoidant pattern, then you need to figure out what causes it for me, and where was the rupture for myself? Where did it occur, and what is happening? What is happening? Is it abuse that caused the rupture? Is it mental health, your mental health, that you are in a season of healing or in a season of treatment for your own mental health? Is it illness, a physical illness, which leaves you with not much capacity to connect? So it's important to notice, or are you living in abuse? Are you still living in an abusive situation? You're trying to fix, you're trying to work on the relationship, you're trying your best. What is the reason for the rupture with your children? If you notice that's happening, you also need to check on, where did it happen for me? Am I an avoidant attached person? Am I usually like that generally in my relationships? And if you are, then it's important for you to get help for you. And when a mother calls me about their child, I always say first that let's do you, because oftentimes as parents, when we get help, our children get help, because we're communicating differently, we're responding differently, we're connecting differently, our approach is different, we have more capacity and availability, and that does help. So I always say, as a parent, you do the work first. Doesn't matter how old the children are, as you do the work, because you are going to be different in your interaction, then that will also help. If you notice that the children still needs help, then definitely give it to them. Definitely provide it. But when we are different, oftentimes it has a trickle-down effect. So find out as well what's happening, where did it happen, where did the rupture happen for me, and where did it happen in my parenting, okay? And get help. Get help. I'll say get help for you, get help for the child if it's necessary, get help for the relationship. Depending on the age, it doesn't matter. You can go to therapy as a family, as you and one child, as you and all the children, or as a family, or the child alone, you alone. But if you're sending your child to therapy, ensure that you also get therapy. So when they come home, home is different and changed as well. Otherwise, it won't be as effective as you'd like it to be. So those are some of the things that you can do and build the way. Some of the ways that you can build is doing activities that will start to build trust and create a safety. So you might go for walks, you might hike, you might camp, play games, indoor games, board games, outdoor games. Do a lot of play. Play is a beautiful way to build connection. Laughter is a beautiful way, because when you're playing a simple silly game like tag or hide and seek or any one of those things, there's a lot of laughter, a lot of touching, a lot of those things going on. And while it might be difficult in the beginning, if you're not familiar, you're not used to doing things like that, you're not used to hugs and touches and all of that kind of stuff, then it might be a little bit awkward for you if you're not used to it, and it might be awkward for the children. But as you do it, it becomes a lot easier. So make this a routine. Do one thing. There are many things. There are hundreds of things, thousands of things that you could do, but choose one and lean hard into that one and do that one. So that one might be family time. That one might be special time, play time. Every day we're going to play. You might only have 10 minutes to play. Play in that 10 minutes. So you might have a favorite board game, or the children might choose an activity that they want to do for play. Do that activity. It might mean that you're getting down on the floor and you're playing with Play-Doh. If you're like, I never liked Play-Doh. I don't know why. It's just too sticky. And it gets everywhere. And if you have carpets and you're using Play-Doh, it just gets in all the little bits and it's hard to get out, right? But that might be required if you're trying to build safety and connection. You might need to get down on the floor and play with Play-Doh. You might need to do drawing or coloring or sharing a coloring book if it's a nice, quiet activity. So those are some of the ways that you can begin to fix the avoidant pattern that you've noticed in your parenting and move towards building secure connection with your children.